The first thing to say is why have I made this video? Over the years, meeting fellow dog owners out walking, I've often been complimented by the health of my dog Harvey and by how latterly he has remained active in older life. I've always put this down to the bones and raw food diet that he's been on since birth. This diet, created and promoted by the Australian vet Ian Billinghurst in his book Give Your Dog a Bone. When describing what was in this diet to fellow dog owners, I've often been asked to pass on the knowledge, and recently it was suggested that I make a video to describe just how I make up the diet for my dog, and importantly, just how easy it is to do it. So here it is.
The bones and raw food diet, sometimes called the BARF diet, doesn't have a rigidly defined set of ingredients. It's more a way of giving fresh food to your dog, conveniently and with ingredients that work well with your dog. Being able to source all the ingredients easily is the key to this. And also this diet is very often cheaper than buying tinned or processed dog food. But one hugely important thing is you know exactly what your dog is eating. I feed my Cocker Spaniel twice a day. He starts the day with 2 fresh chicken wings. This provides the first part of the bones and raw food diet, but also jaw muscle exercise. Chewing of the bones and the meat also helps to keep his teeth clear from plaque and helps reduce other dental issues. Rolling up the screen now is the list of ingredients I use in my mixture, which I make up once a month. This mixture is what constitutes his evening meal, where he'll get a portion of about 350 to 400 grams. For dogs larger or smaller than Cocker Spaniels, you'd change the portion size to suit the dog, and as I describe later in this video, the portion size you are freezing is also related to the size and choice of container you intend to use. And clearly a larger dog will eat his way through this mixture faster than a smaller dog. You'll notice the inclusion of the minced meat carcass blocks, which also have bone particles within them. This helps add a meaty flavour to the mix, but also fresh protein. The cooked rice adds some carbohydrate to the mix, and is the only cooked item he receives in his diet. I often add half a cup of wheat bran to this daily mixture as roughage, as after freezing, the vegetable mix thaws out rather like a thick paste. All vegetables are seasonal in nature, and with this veg list, the most seasonal is the Brussel sprouts. So in the summer months, I vary the mix to constituents by increasing the amounts shown in red for some of the other ingredients.
Okay, so what do we need to do all this mixing? Well, first of all, we need a blender, about 60 quid maybe, a large mixing spoon, set of scales, and we need a bucket to put all the food into once we've made the mix up. It's a builder's bucket, 2 quid on B&Q, so really cheap. This is about 13 to 15 litres, so that's probably more than enough to produce for this particular mix. Okay, this is the first 3 ingredients, the courgettes, the carrots and the celery. These are the ones that put through the blender first, before we then mix them up together, and then we put them through the blender again to grind them down a bit more. It's at this point that it's going to be sensible to start cooking the rice, so that the rice has a chance to cool down before you do the mix at the end. Otherwise you're putting hot rice into a relatively warm mixture, which is then going to be going into the freezer, and then the freezer is obviously going to end up getting challenged. And it also would be useful to start making the freezer to chill down now, because it's going to have quite a lot of hot food going into it. So the first thing we want to do now is to deal with the celery. Okay, 600 grams of celery. First thing we do with this is slice it up before we end up putting it into the builder's bucket to mix it with the other 2 of the 3 starting vegetables, which we'll then end up putting it through again to grind up. Okay, so first thing we do is grind up the celery. Okay, that's the celery ground up. And it looks like that, just rings the celery, and that's the first stage. We then go through, do the same to the other 2 vegetables, which are cruciform vegetables, and then we mix them up again. But this goes straight into the builder's bucket. Okay, next up was courgettes. We've got 1 kilogram here. So first thing is we put this through the blender for its first stage cut down. Okay, that's the courgettes cut down on the first stage. That's what they look like. They're kind of long strings. And we stick that in the builder's bucket and mix it up with the celery, and we go on to the next vegetable. Okay, last of the first 3 vegetables, the carrots, 650 grams. and we just put this to the grater, like the courgettes, before we mix them up in the builder's bucket. Okay, that's the carrots ground up. Basically they're sort of in strings, shredded carrot. We add that to the builder's bucket, and then we mix it up with the other two vegetables before we start grinding it down even further. Okay, that's what the mix looks like now, mixed up the first three vegetables. And now what we're going to do is put that through the blender a few batches at a time, so that we end up grinding it down to a paste about the consistency of cold porridge, something along those lines. So first thing to do is load up the mixer and off we go. Okay, that's the first mixture done, the first batch. Looks like that, it's kind of ground up, looks a bit like cold porridge granules. So if we just turn it out very quickly, you can get a better view. That's what it looks like, better view, and we go through all the rest of the other mixtures, the other batch, so that we end up with everything looking like that. Okay, that's all the vegetables ground up now. They've got this consistency of cold porridge, and we now go through the rest of the recipe list, adding the vegetables as we go and mixing them in till we get to the end. Okay, next up is the fennel, 800 grams. So basically put this through the blender and grind it down to the same consistency as the what's in the builder's bucket at the moment. Okay, that's the first pair done. That's what they look like, kind of granulated down. And we do the last two fennel here, and that's them done. Okay, 900 grams of white cabbage. Again, we'll probably chop this in half and a quarter and pipe it through the blender. But that's the next vegetable on the list. Okay, that's the first half done. Again, it's granulated down to that kind of level, same as all the other vegetables. So do the other half of the cabbage, and then it's on to the next ingredient. Okay, here we have the broccoli, 1 kilogram. So it's a question of chopping this up and putting it through the blender and following on and mixing on from here. Okay, that's half the broccoli done. Yep. That's that consistency, it's fairly granular, and we'll do the other half of the broccoli like that and add it onto the mix. Okay, next up, cauliflower. We've got 800 grams here because we're running without Brussel sprouts, so that's the next up in the mixture. Okay, that's the cauli done, or the first half of it done. And again, it's the consistency of granules. So that's the consistency we're going down to here. It's got to be that small so the dog can actually absorb it, because it's a cruciform vegetable and they need to be down for a fairly small size. So after that, we add that to the builder's bucket. Okay, next up it's the tomatoes. I'm using tomatoes on the vine, but I'm not putting the vine parts through, so it's a case of just loading up the blender with the tomatoes and then blitzing them till they're virtually liquid, because you're adding it to the mix. It's as much as a lubricant as much as its value. Right, so just to give that a blitzing and that's ready to go. Okay, that's the tomatoes blitzed. It's about 30 seconds to a minute. There we are, completely liquidised, and we just add that straight to the builder's bucket. Okay, next up is the plums. 1 kilogram of plums. I got red plums and yellow plums, only because I couldn't get enough reds, so otherwise they're all the same colour. This is probably the most time consuming ingredient to get ready to go into the blender. First of all, what we've got to do is we've got to de-stone them, and what I do is cut them around the waist, twist, put the half in without the stone, cut the other half again around the waist, what's left, and normally pretty much you can pair off so that you end up with the stone in 1/4. Then it's a case of just pairing away for the knife, and that's the job done. So again, it's a case of going around the waist like that, twist, you get half off, and then you've got the stone in 1/2 of the pair of the plum, and then it's down, you've got the stone in the last quarter, Let's just switch the carving out, and it's like that. So now all I've got to do is go through all those, do the same thing, and blend it all in one go. Okay, that's the plums done. They're at the consistency of thick paste, which is sufficient. And then we add this straight on top of the tomatoes in the builder's bucket. Okay, the final thing is I add some oil to the mix before I finally do the mixing. And this is a cold pressed oil. It's got flaxseed, sunflower oil, olive oil, and evening primrose oil in it. It's come from Holland & Barrett. It's their kind of optimum oil blend, and I put in 60 ml per batch for his coat, and he does quite well with it. So I'd recommend doing that as well. And it also freezes okay. So when you freeze the mix, you're not going to be denaturing the oil. But we add 60 ml of that to the mixture. Okay. Okay, last ingredient, the apples, 1.2 kilograms. It's just a question of blitzing this down to a paste, adding it to the builder's bucket before we get on to the minced chicken carcass, which we then add in batches. So it's just a question of chopping this up and blitzing it through. Okay, that's the apple blitz now. It's gone a bit brown, so I need to put it into the builder's bucket and mix it in quite quickly. But that's the consistency of sort of a thick paste. But that's the apples done. Right. Okay, next up is the Greek yogurt. There's 500 grams here, Greek style yogurt, full fat. That's obviously for the casein value. And when you add this to the vegetable mix, it will loosen it up a bit because it's probably quite sticky now. But that's what we do now. And before we get to putting in the chicken carcass mix. With the bones and raw food mixture, clearly it's important to have a meat element. And the meat I use is minced chicken carcass. Comes in 400 gram blocks, like this one. I used 5 of these into mixing in with the vegetables. And this is made by Nature's Menu. You can get it online or buy it at the local pet shop, which is what I do. But you get the frozen block, allow it to thaw and mix it in with the vegetable mix. And that then gives you, the balance of protein from the meat and with the vegetables. Okay, now we've got to the point where we need to add the vegetable mixture and the chicken carcass mix together. We've got 5 packets of thawed minced chicken carcass, the salt here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of spoons of the vegetable mix to the blender, to 2 or 3 spoons, like that. Then we get one of our minced chicken carcass packets. You want to pour off some of the exudate liquid first of all, and then basically we add it to the blender. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run the blender and mix the two together. And we do that for each of the 5 batches. There we go, just a quick blitz. We've now got a very gluey consistency, but the first part of the mix has been done. So now what we're going to do is just decant this off into a bowl, and then we then carry on and work our way through all the others. And then when we've got to the end, we then pour it back into the main mixture, so that we can then finish. And halfway through, what I tend to do is add half the mixture that we've got here, half of this, because we'll end up with 2 bowls full, and then I'll add the cooked rice halfway through. Right. Okay, there's our chicken blocks, which have been mixed in with 2 or 3 spoons of vegetable mix, divided into 2, and there's the remainder of the mix in the builder's bucket. So now what I'm going to do is add half of it into here, then I'll mix that together, and then we add the rice. This is about 300 grams of dry boiled rice. This is brown rice, 2 cupfuls basically, and when I mix that together I'll add the rice to that, which will make it slightly drier, and then finally I'll add this portion of the meat and mix it all together, and then it's then going to be ready to be portioning up into the Tupperware pots for freezing. Okay, the mix is done. It looks like that. And for the list of ingredients that you got, this will produce about 15 litres of mix, which is what we've got here. I then portion this out between, I've got 4 of these, and these are 3 litre containers, and they're divided up a bit like a wine box. So that gives about 12 litres in there. And I've got each of these, which is half a litre, and I'll put 1 portion in there, to give about 300 to 450 grams per portion. So this is for a Cocker Spaniel, weight about 13 kilograms, and this is 1 meal. He'll get, obviously, this is an evening meal, and he'll get a breakfast as well. In his case, it'll be chicken wings, but this gives him an evening meal, and this is about 30 days worth of evening meals, and I will take off 2 days worth of fresh, put them in the fridge, so he's got fresh today and fresh tomorrow, and then the rest of it will be frozen, and that's how we do it. So it's then just a question of portioning it out. For the large pots, I will portion it out and then weigh them up to be about the same. In this case, it's about 2,600 grams per pot, which gives him a portion size of between 350 and 450 grams each. It's kind of roughly that, but that's what we do, and that's the end of the job. So what's the best way to manage the frozen item? Well, here's my 3 litre Tupperware pot that I bought straight out of the freezer. I will normally take this out and let it thaw at room temperature for about an hour and a half. It softens up, so then I can then take it out of the container and then give it a chance to thaw a bit more, so that you can prise away the 6 portions of meat off the dividers. If you just bash at it like an ice block, you'll smash the dividers, and then you will have to start all over again. So doing that means then that you've got those 6 blocks. I pop those into a bag as separate blocks, put them back into the freezer, and then first thing in the morning I take out one of the blocks, put it into a pot or an open tray, allow it to thaw out so that by the evening it's at room temperature, and then the dog's ready for it then. So that's how we deal with the frozen item. And this is the one who's we've been doing for 13 kilograms of Cocker Spaniel. He's a bit long on the tooth, but he does quite well. But that's what this is for. And he's got to 14, so the recipe works jolly well, and there's more life in him yet. Anyway, here's the audience.